In a world where music trends shifted rapidly, the Beatles astounded all with their unprecedented dominance on the Billboard Hot 100, occupying the top 5 spots in one fateful week in April 1964. This phenomenon, reminiscent of Elvis Presley's reign, showcased an overwhelmingly strong product. Wally Ridley at HMV was confronted with a dilemma, finding a British successor to the American Elvis. However, he had a different perspective than many others. While listening intently to Presley's voice, Wally deduced that it would take the UK at least 3 years to produce musicians capable of matching his playing abilities and a frontman with an equivalent voice. He reasoned that attempting to replicate Presley's style would only result in second-best imitations. Instead, he chose to focus on what he knew. Hits like St. Teresa of the Roses, which sold 250,000 copies for Malcolm Vaughan due to its strong songwriting, sincere delivery, and quality performance. While they achieved some success in ballrooms, their records failed to capture the public's attention. The first significant British rock and roll success story was Tommy Steele, a young merchant seaman with an approachable persona described as the boy next door. Unlike other artists who sought screams through provocative gestures, Steele remained true to himself, claiming that his personality was what led him to beat Elvis in a Swedish poll. However, some critics argued that Steele's style resembled George Formby more than it did genuine rock and roll. Brian Gregg, a guitarist, echoed these sentiments, stating that although Tommy Steele was initially touted as the UK's answer to Elvis, he quickly became a parody of George Formby and lacked credibility in the rock and roll sphere. Terry Dean, on the other hand, had a more aggressive vocal style better suited for rock and roll, but personal issues hindered his rise. It was only with Cliff Richard's emergence that Britain finally found its own authentic rock and roll star. Larry Page, billed as the Teenage Rage, tried to capitalize on this newfound British interest in rock and roll but failed miserably when he released an underwhelming cover of That'll Be the Day. His lackluster attempt at emulating the American phenomenon only served to highlight the need for genuine talent and originality in the midst of the rock and roll craze. In the midst of a cultural revolution, an aspiring singer began taking classical singing lessons with dreams of becoming another Ronnie Hilton or Perry Como. However, the irresistible force of rock and roll swept through and changed everything. The young hopeful decided to abandon their formal training and pursue this electrifying new genre. The pianist who accompanied him during his recording test was Terry Stanford, who later transformed into Russ Conway. With EMI signing the talented singer, they started churning out hit records that continued to sell in impressive numbers, including the singer's own. Meanwhile, a Methodist minister named Lord Soper found himself bewildered by the popularity of rock and roll, particularly with the BBC's 6.5 special show. He dismissed the music as emotionally embarrassing and intellectually ridiculous, and questioned how intelligent people could derive satisfaction from it. Directing this groundbreaking show was a young man named Jack Good, only 25 years old at the time. Despite his Oxford education and love for Shakespeare, he recognized the power of rock and roll, even if he didn't equate its value to that of the bard. He saw Tommy Steele as an exceptional talent who stood out among other artists due to his lack of a threatening persona, a trait Jack found appealing in rock performers. Unfortunately, when 6.5 Special did not renew Tommy Steele's contract, citing the impending demise of rock and roll, Jack Good found himself at odds with the BBC. He believed in Steele and the enduring popularity of rock and roll. As a result, they parted ways. As for playwright Alan Bleasdale, he was an avid fan of rock and roll but only held British acts to a lesser standard compared to their American counterparts. He praised the likes of Cliff Richard and Terry Dean but did not consider British rock and roll records as collectible items. Years later, Tommy Steele reflected on his old hits with fondness, acknowledging that it was almost like living a dream to hear them once again. As if performing music had become an art form itself, one could argue that the musicians of earlier times paled in comparison to the current generation's talent. They lacked the understanding of chord sequences and the ability to explore different ideas within a confined musical structure. For them, it was all about simple chords and emphasizing the second and fourth beats to the bar. Their song, Come On Let's Go, was almost comical in comparison to Elvis Presley's charismatic performances. Jack Good, a prominent figure in the industry, went to great lengths to secure an appearance of Elvis on his show's 6.5 Special. After agreeing on an exorbitant amount of £10,000, a figure that was ultimately unattainable, Colonel Parker revealed that it only covered his own cut, with the actual fee for Elvis being a staggering £250,000, a price far beyond reach. Consequently, Elvis never made an appearance on British soil. The British artists largely avoided recording Elvis's songs, understanding that there was little gain in covering his tunes without official sanction. The Embassy label, distributed through Woolworth stores, offered cheap duplicates of popular hits performed by lesser-known singers with budget accompaniments. Pseudonyms were commonplace, and artists like Shorty Mitchell and the Canadians attempted to cash in on the craze without infringing on copyright laws. In the 1950s, covering one of Presley's songs was considered a risky move, almost career suicide. Clinton Ford, who had diverse musical interests in folk, jazz, and country, decided to challenge this notion by recording Elvis's country song Old Shep. Despite initial hesitation from his record label, Oriole, the song gained popularity when Ford performed it at Butlin's holiday camps. His rendition was well received, and he eventually recorded it, daring to tread where few others had before him. In a dramatic turn of events, an unusual song found its way into the charts despite initial opposition. Clinton Ford's rendition of Old Shep, a steel guitar and choirback track, was replaced by a rock and roll version featuring two saxophones against his preference. The alternative version, though subpar, managed to gain traction, drawing attention from RCA, who swiftly released an Elvis Presley EP with Old Shep as the lead track. As fate would have it, Clinton graciously offered to donate his royalties from the song to Battersea Dogs Home. However, this act of generosity backfired when he discovered that Queen Elizabeth had requested her household to turn off a radio program playing Old Shep due to having lost a corgi. BBC presenter Brian Matthew, who was close friends with Clinton Ford, recalls a challenging live performance at the Royal Albert Hall where Clint initially refused to sing Old Shep. Coaxed into performing by Brian, Clint faced an outburst of jeering hooligans shouting for Elvis. Undeterred, he vowed to finish the song no matter what and was ultimately met with applause and cheers. While these peculiar cover versions gained some attention, they failed to spark interest in Elvis merchandise amongst British fans. Colonel Parker enlisted Hank Saperstein's help in licensing Elvis products in Britain, but his efforts proved futile. It was later discovered that Brian Epstein had made a similar mistake with the Beatles, failing to recognize the vast potential of the international market from a British perspective. Sheila Prithirk, a member of the Vernon's Girls, shared her embarrassment during a performance where she had to sing All Shook Up while shaking her chest. Meanwhile, O'Brien and Mary recalled how they had to showcase their derrieres with Elvis and Presley written on them for a camera shoot. Interestingly, while stationed in Germany, Private Elvis Presley met the girls' agent, Stanley Barnett, and expressed his admiration for the swingin' Vernon's Girls. This encounter may have been due to Elvis being drawn to the name, but it certainly added an intriguing twist to their story. In a time when the Ed Sullivan Show's success reigned supreme in America, an intriguing dilemma unfolded across the pond. The BBC, bound by its charter to limit American imports, opted for the Perry Como show instead, considering it more professional and boasting a more captivating host. ITV, on the other hand, remained confident in their own Sunday night at the London Palladium, deeming it superior. The enigmatic Ed Sullivan Show faced criticism for its stilted and inexpressive host, which, though amusing to American audiences, left outsiders perplexed and questioning its competence. For UK fans yearning to witness the legendary Elvis Presley, their only option was to attend his cinema debut in Love Me Tender, a film that failed to attract similar cues in Britain. Disappointingly, after a mere 4 days of screening in Windsor, the movie was withdrawn due to fan disapproval of Elvis's on-screen performance. Tim Thomas penned a scathing review in the NME, expressing his amusement at Elvis's attempts at acting with greasy hair and curled lip. However, Jennifer Ross defended Elvis in Hit Parade, arguing that clear vocal understanding wasn't always necessary for appreciation. She pointed to the example of famed opera singer Caruso, who was often incomprehensible when singing in Italian. The emergence of rock and roll, symbolized by films like Rock Around the Clock, ignited a revolutionary movement that paved the way for icons such as Little Richard and Elvis Presley. The Teddy Boys, with their distinctive style characterized by long, velvet-collared jackets, drainpipe trousers, White Sox, and crepe soles became associated with the movement. Known for their penchant for rioting and damaging cinema seats, these youths often left cinemas in chaos. Amidst this turbulent climate, Lord Auckland recounted to the House of Lords an encounter with a cinema manager who felt forced to screen a rock and roll film featuring Elvis or another star. Much to the dismay of some regular patrons who criticized the cinema for showing such content. The intrigue surrounding the cultural impact of these musical icons and their fans only continued to grow as the movement gained momentum. During this turbulent period, overeager cinema managers attempted to disperse exuberant fans in Liverpool from the ABC on Lime Street all the way to the Pierhead. Lord Boothby, appearing on the BBC's Any Questions, expressed grave concerns about the potential impact of such a film, calling it a fourth-rate film with fifth-rate music that could jeopardize civilization. He urged for an immediate ban. Lord Boothby also stated that one of the responsibilities of older individuals was to prevent youth from making foolish decisions. However, his commentary only added to the intrigue and amusement, as it was evident he lacked understanding of contemporary issues compared to those directly involved in the situation. Meanwhile, Jack Good, creator of ITV's fast-paced Oh Boy, discovered a young artist named Cliff Richard through a song titled Schoolboy Crush. Initially unimpressed by the track, Jack found himself captivated by the B-side and decided to give Cliff a chance on his show. Cliff Richard recalled being advised to abandon his Elvis imitation, cutting off his sideburns and dropping his guitar to adopt a more distinctive persona. He admitted that he had initially been a carbon copy of Elvis, but credited Jack Good for helping him evolve into his own unique performer. Wally White from the skiffle group, The Vipers, agreed with Cliff's assessment, stating that the key to successfully imitating Elvis was to do so with conviction. He furthered that while the audience desired Elvis, they were content with a credible imitation like Cliff's. Oh Boy emerged as an enormous success and left an indelible mark on television history, paving the way for future music shows. As the controversy surrounding the film continued to unfold, the story of Cliff Richard's transformation into a captivating performer under Jack Good's guidance added an element of intrigue to the ongoing debate about censorship and popular culture. In the realm of music shows, Jack Good, a notable producer, played a pivotal role in discovering Billy Fury, often regarded as the closest British equivalent to Elvis Presley. Not only was Fury known for his charismatic performances, but he also had a penchant for writing his own songs, which was quite ahead of its time. Guitarist Big Jim Sullivan once shared an intriguing anecdote about one of Billy's performances in Glasgow. As Fury began to emulate Presley's moves with increasing intensity, the audience became divided. The girls adored his performance while the men grew restless and eventually took drastic action. They uprooted large brass ashtrays from the stage and hurled them at Billy, one of which narrowly missed Colin Green's guitar and could have proved fatal. Joe Brown, a fellow musician, spoke about working with Jack Good on an album featuring Billy Fury's original material. The inspiration was drawn from early Presley recordings featuring Scotty Moore on guitar. Brown embraced the task, incorporating the distinctive licks he had already learned. The unusual ensemble for the sound of Fury, Reg Guest on piano, Bill Stark on acoustic bass, Alan Whale on electric bass, and Brown himself on guitar, proved to be a successful blend. Meanwhile, in Hollywood during 1960, Frankie Vaughan, a middle-of-the-road crooner who later became the prototype for Tom Jones, encountered Elvis Presley. They struck up a friendship after a game of handball and shared admiration for each other's work. Interestingly, Elvis was aware of the British music scene, complimenting Vaughan on his status as Britain's Frankie Vaughan. Despite initially not being impressed by many rock and roll singers, Vaughan recognized Presley's unique charm and talent, especially in his rendition of A Heartbreak Hotel. He acknowledged the distinct Southern flavor in all of Elvis's work. In conclusion, these accounts offer a glimpse into the intriguing world of music shows during an era when artists like Billy Fury, Joe Brown, and Frankie Vaughan were making their mark while being influenced by or influencing none other than the legendary Elvis Presley.